Well, hello everyone. And how are you tonight? I thought we'd try to heat things up on these cold winter nights, unless you're in New Zealand or Australia. It's kind of like a harmonious bosh of early mid-century, last century, Thomas Hart Benton, and we'll see where he fits in with all of this. I've kind of been wanting to, but avoiding this one, and we'll just dig in. Thomas Hart Benton had a school of art later on in Kansas City. So here we are. We're not in New York anymore. We're not in LA. None of that coastal stuff. We are in this wild heart of the heartland, post Mark Twain, of course. And there were 3 people who went to that school and to the, look at that lazy river, and to the Art Institute in Kansas City as well. So I was thinking of them in the last few years as a kind of strange Trinity. Maybe a new Trinity for that era. One, Walt Disney, he went there. And all 3 knew each other, by the way. The second, J.C. Nichols, the founder of the shopping mall, basically. I don't know if others can be credited with it or not, but he's definitely up that alley. And the third is not as well known, but we can show you what he did as well. We'll bring that up. And his name was Lowell Fillmore. And his parents were the founders of a, early mid-century religion, American, called Unity. The Unity School of Christianity. So there was money in it, that, money sort of came, and a lot of land was bought, and Lowell was the one who really kind of got to have fun with it as the heir, the child of it, and he built a sort of, shall we say, I won't say religious Disneyland, it doesn't have rides or anything, but we'll take a peek. So this is Thomas Hart Benton, and that is the trio. I don't know if they're under his auspices or not, but it's just odd that these 3 sort of maybe manipulators of space, there's a certain artifice to Disneyland and to shopping malls, and as you'll see, Unity Village as well is sort of mini utopian places and coming out of this sort of, I don't know, is it this new era, an optimism mixed with the depression, mixed with, I don't know, the mercilessness of nature, this kind of labor and work, and there was just sort of a lot that was going on with him, with a lot of murals. I don't think his murals were as insidious as the ones that are at the Denver airport, or like I'm hearing about the ones at the United Nations. It's weird how sometimes we gloss over or almost censor things that are just sort of like too much or too cumbersome or maybe just too awful. And so thank you very much, Johnny Smoke, for reminding me of that. And we will definitely get very into that as well. But we've got more ahead here. Sorry, I'm just kind of falling into these, but it seemed like a good time to be able to explain a little bit about where we're going with things, a little bit maybe. So, here, we'll come back to this later maybe. A good place to always start with everything is Rockefeller. We've got Nelson Rockefeller, of course, the book that I love to always quote, especially because everything in it came from their own library, from, oh my God, this Charles Colby, who spent 19 years in there, like researching and writing. It's just kind of creepy, isn't it? There he is with his hand on the globe, right? Like a risk game. The world is mine, and we'll look into, right, they have the University of Chicago, they have Rockefeller University in New York, all kinds of places, and they also have places within places, right? They've got the Center for Latin American Studies at Harvard, which is liberal, right? And University of Chicago, liberal. And if you read Thy Will Be Done, you will see that this is a really prominent early bricklayer, shall we say, of Latin America's takeover by the Rockefellers and the whole United Fruit thing, and just, all of that. And SIL International is more covert. You don't see the Rockefeller name anywhere in the Wikipedia thing, different stuff I went through, but you see it in the book, Thy Will Be Done, that it is indeed, Rockefeller set it up, but wanted it under other auspices, shall we say. So here it is an evangelical. It's an evangelical linguistic, basically it's a front group. And he, Rockefeller found people who were sincere, who were not only sincere but inflamed sort of missionaries. One of them is sort of a colorful, slightly creepy character named Camp Cameron or something like that, who was the, one of the first ones, and went down and, went to Guatemala first and lived in this little village and, started things. And it's interesting. See, here you have an SIL initiate joint effort. God, boy, they probably are taking our tax dollars on this one, I'm sure. That's why they're smiling. And you see there's UNESCO. And UNESCO, whenever I see that word, I just always know something's up. And later on, I remember seeing that Obama's mom was part of UNESCO and part of the textile, like going to little villages And there was something just, I don't know, I think they found out later it was like aspiring or something. Here's Lowell's thing. Here's Lowell's little, the little mini religious, I don't mean to put it down calling it a Disneyland. It is a sort of like little, he did reconstructions of places he liked in Europe. So this was located right next to Kansas City, right on the outskirts. Lee's Summit. And Ed Asner did the Word of the Day thing when TV was out at night from that. And here's their weird, Masonic tower, right? They've got that going on. And, I've got something here I can show you. And it no longer is, which is kind of strange. That's why I have to show you that. It's good I had some hard copy around. But this was their old, and that's from the Tulsa church, but the winged disc as opposed to a cross. So that might sort of freak some Christians out. It might be, it's pre-New Age. It's what was called New Thought. And when I've done sort of research on the winged disc, they sort of say sun, the flying sun, but a flying sun is basically a UFO. So that's weird because they really were not that interesting or mystical. I think the founders might have been. I think they were like into like Eastern religion as well and like reincarnation and stuff, but they kind of really toned themselves down. And there's I think I've heard L. Ron Hubbard, they kind of ripped off stuff from Mary Baker Eddy a little bit. Everyone was kind of ripping everyone off then. And then, I think religious science, which started in LA after them. Mary Baker Eddy had been on the East Coast, so this was the kind of middle. And, this is, there was just all this money and they bought all this land. And they even they had like a restaurant, and all the politicians would get in limos and go to the restaurant, like, at noon and everything. It was kind of the fun thing. There was the Italian part, replica for the admin, and then there's the Cotswolds part for where people would live or stay in the little guest houses. Sadly, I don't think they do the orchards anymore. It had been an old orchard, and so they used to kind of have amazing, I don't know, cherry jam and things like that, little kind of fruit stands. It was an old orchard that they bought, and still a little of it's around. So, it's interesting that we have these kind of controlled artificial environments, Disneyland, of course, being the most prominent, and J.C. Nichols with his shopping malls. And here's his sort of first place. And in the background, you can see the tower of the plaza in Kansas City that looks quite similar to the plaza, to the tower in Unity Village. The kind of Masonic-looking tower. I don't know, it's strange. Here it looks, there it is. It doesn't seem to go away. So that is interesting. So kind of back then to, we've got Rockefeller University, again here in Manhattan, and we've got University of Chicago, where Obama kind of came out of that sort of milieu, shall we say. I think Hillary Clinton did. I think this was Lewinsky. So this is kind of this wild, liberal hotbed from the Rockefellers. And then, of course, we've got the SIL, which is more covert, that's evangelical. And this is really the giant ruse of the Rockefellers, was that they, here we'll look at some pictures of Unity while I try to explain it. They we're going into Latin America, and of course they know people aren't going to have a lot of trust. So they would have two groups going down that were quite the opposite of each other. You've got your, we've talked about this before, the Birkenstock guy. Wow, Unity's really, wow, they've really got the gift shops going, don't they? Oh, wow, they put up the hotel. And you know what's funny is now that hotel looks very, what shall we say, unsustainable. And yet back in the day when Lowell built it, these fountains here actually kept everything cool. And there was a hotel there that was air conditioned by the fountains here. And I heard they tore it down, and it was like, wow, like this guy had this place that was completely, sustainably run or whatever. The materials were all from the quarry, on the land and everything. And it's just funny how, like, in the 70s or something, they tore it down, right, the 80s, when everyone got really, stupid or something. So, here we've got the little, there's, this just beautiful street of kind of endless kind of little Cotswolds buildings here. What I wanted to bring up also was that with MK Ultra, we have been doing a lot in the area of academia regarding, there's a really cool pool, but I don't know if I'll find it, with academia, but also there is a wing of, that's strange. There's a wing where, the church is involved as well. There is that. And we've been talking about academia. We haven't really been bringing up the church. And, the church really is, I don't really think there is separation of church and state. Now, these are kind of like those old, weird, like, 30s buildings. This isn't like the cool Cotswolds part, right? This is like where they, like, I don't know, this is like where they stick, Maple Lane. That's kind of it's like the ghetto part, I don't know, like, and so there is this correlation that always happens. And the church is there, what, confession, right? And that's where you get all your info. The priests are going to be able to, like, know who's up with what, everything. It's perfect social control. And when people stopped going to church, you had Freud's, confessional psychoanalysis, so they could sort of still have that priestly role and be able to know who was up to what. When a town starts anywhere, the first two buildings up are going to be, the courthouse, city hall, government building, and the church. And if the church, the church wouldn't exist if the, government didn't somehow want it to or whatever. It's kind of a weird symbiotic relationship there where, the government needs this, in between hand that's there with the people somehow to know who is up to what. And so I kind of want to get into that more as we go into things, and that was kind of a good place to kind of go. Now there was something else here. I was just really wanting to bring up even more sort of Rockefeller things, Rockefeller places. I don't know if this is still as it was, but this was a place built, the Mauna Kea Beach Hotel, and built on a truly perfect beach in a very remote part of the Big Island, which had not been known as a vacation area. Let's see if it's still remote or not. I don't see too much north of it. It's still fairly remote. You know, you can drive there now. You used to have to like fly little puddle jumper planes to get to the place, and it's quite extraordinary. Living there, of course, I got the other end of it where, the locals were really mad. They said, Rockefeller, came and, went to the middle of nowhere and grabbed our most perfect beach. So that is kind of rude. And in Hawaii, you do have the right to access to beaches, but I think it's hard to get to. So, that's kind of weird. And this was built by Lawrence, who was sort of the more, kind of the psychedelic, intellectual 60s of the Rockefellers. I don't think he was quite as heavy-handed, although he still vacuumed up a lot of art in Cambodia. And that was supposedly one reason this hotel was started, was he needed somewhere to put stuff. So this isn't your kind of kitsch Hawaiian hotel. This was this weird secretive place housing, giant Cambodian statues and things like that. And for a little bonus, it was built in, I think 65. Okay, 65. And, there's all kinds of interesting stories about it, that like Jackie Kennedy hung out there, like hid, not hung out, but hid. But in looking at old White House stuff, this is like old classified information. And it's funny, they called it Hilo, Hawaii, the Mauna Kea Beach Hotel. It says Mauna Kea, and it's nowhere near the Hilo. It's on the whole other side of the island. It's north, that's south, everything. But I think Hilo was the closest place you could fly into it, so they probably called it Hilo. But this is where Kissinger, it was his secret den, from what I've been reading, and where he hung out in between DC and China. And I think he stayed there over 100 times. He went back and forth to China over 100 times. So there, that's kind of a fun little bonus, huh? There it is. So shall we all meet? This is a really cool place because the beach, I don't know, like they're not sure why, but beautiful manatees come in like every night. And that doesn't happen like other places on the island. So there's a little Kissinger magic going on there, everybody. So trying to keep you warm here, showing you the beach. And I don't know where this goes, but it's weird to think that the shopping mall guy, our little Walt Disney here, and Lowell Fillmore of Unity Village, full of the Cotswolds and Venetian architecture with really strange old winged discs inside that are Art Deco. Although they have changed their logo now. I think the winged disc thing probably gets them into too much trouble. So I don't know. I keep trying not to make this fit, but there's another little tower there. But something keeps saying, no, there's this weird kind of component, and let's see where we go with that. Much love, everyone. Thank you. You are all best. Stay awesome. Stay warm.